What if I told you that your struggles aren't punishments, but invitations? You see, we've been misreading life's challenges. We believe they're obstacles to overcome, burdens to bear. But what if these very difficulties are cosmic examinations designed not to break you, but to reveal you? Think about it. The universe isn't against you, it's testing you, not with malice, but with purpose. These 5 fundamental challenges that each of us faces aren't random misfortunes, but deliberate koans posed by existence itself. Let me tell you something. Once you recognize these tests for what they truly are, you'll stop fighting them and start flowing with them. And that, you see, is when everything changes. We humans have such a curious relationship with difficulty. We run from it. We hide from it. We deny it. Yet the very things we resist most in life are often the exact experiences we need for our deepest growth. This is not some motivational slogan. This is a fundamental truth about the architecture of reality that most of us have completely misunderstood. You see, the universe operates with an intelligence far beyond our conventional understanding. It is not merely a mechanical process of cause and effect, but a conscious, intentional field of becoming. And within this field, each apparent obstacle serves a profound purpose. Think about the oak tree for a moment. The strongest oaks are not those sheltered in the valley, protected from all winds. No. The mightiest trees are those that have weathered countless storms, their roots driven deeper with each gale, their trunks made resilient through resistance. Nature understands what we so often forget. Strength comes through testing, not through ease. Or consider gold. How does raw gold become pure? Through fire, through intense heat that burns away all impurities. There is no other way. The fire is not a punishment for the gold. It is the necessary process of refinement. But here's the thing. Unlike the tree or the gold, we humans have consciousness. We can choose how we respond to the universe's curriculum. We can interpret our challenges as cruel punishments, random accidents, or meaningful tests. And that interpretation makes all the difference. Let me tell you about a man I once knew. He had built his entire identity around professional success. His work, his status, his financial achievements. These were the pillars of his self-worth. Then came the economic collapse that swept away everything he had built. His business failed. His savings vanished. His professional reputation crumbled. For months, he interpreted this as the cruelest punishment, a random disaster that had destroyed his life. But one day, something shifted in him. He began to see that the universe wasn't punishing him. It was testing him. Testing his assumption that his value as a human being was tied to external achievements. Testing whether he could discover a deeper identity beyond the social masks he had worn for decades. And once he recognized this as a test rather than a punishment, everything transformed. He stopped fighting reality and began to work with it. He discovered capacities for creativity, connection, and contentment that had been buried beneath his driven exterior. The economic disaster that seemed like the end of his world became the beginning of a much richer life. Have you ever considered that your most painful experiences might be precisely calibrated tests designed specifically for your evolution? Have you wondered why the same patterns keep recurring in your life until you finally learn their lessons? Can you recognize how your resistance to these tests often prolongs your suffering rather than alleviating it? Think about it. We live in a universe of astonishing precision and order. From the mathematical harmony of distant galaxies to the intricate dance of subatomic particles, Everything moves according to profound patterns. Is it really logical to believe that the challenges in your life are random accidents, while everything else in the cosmos follows intelligent design? Or might there be a deeper wisdom at work in your difficulties, a wisdom you've been unable to perceive because you've been looking through the wrong lens? You see, most of us have been taught to view challenges as unfortunate interruptions to life, rather than essential components of it. We treat difficulties as glitches in the system rather than features of it. We have inherited a mindset that says comfort is the goal and discomfort is the enemy. But what if the reverse is closer to the truth? What if comfort is the training ground and discomfort is the teacher? When you resist life's challenges, you resist the very forces designed to help you evolve. We resist them. We resent them. We run from them. And in doing so, we miss their gifts entirely. Now let me tell you something about how the universe tests us. Its examinations are not random. They follow specific patterns, targeting precise areas where we need growth, where we cling to illusion, where we remain asleep to deeper reality. And once you understand these patterns, these recurring tests, you can begin to approach them consciously rather than reactively. There is a certain delicious irony in how we approach life's difficulties. We spend enormous energy trying to avoid the very experiences that would most liberate us. If you could see what I have seen, you would laugh at the cosmic joke of it all. Not with cruelty, but with the gentle humor of recognition. Now let me tell you about these 5 fundamental challenges. These aren't arbitrary difficulties. They are the universe's deliberate curriculum, designed for your awakening. The first challenge the universe presents to you is the challenge of identity. This is where the cosmic examination begins, at the very foundation of who you believe yourself to be. The universe will systematically dismantle your carefully constructed sense of self. It will shake the pillars of your identity until everything you thought you were begins to crumble. This is not cruelty. This is necessary education. You see, what we call our identity is largely an elaborate fiction, a collection of labels, memories, social roles, and cultural conditioning that we mistake for our essential nature. We say, I am a doctor, a mother, an American, a success, a failure. We build entire lives around these temporary descriptors, forgetting they are merely the clothing of consciousness, not consciousness itself. What if I told you that your true self has no definition, no boundary, no permanent characteristic that can be captured in thought or language? What if the universe is testing your attachment to these temporary identities precisely because they keep you trapped in a limited experience of reality? I once knew a woman who had been beautiful all her life. Her beauty had opened doors, attracted relationships, and formed the cornerstone of how she understood herself in the world. Then came illness, and with it, treatments that transformed her physical appearance entirely. She lost her hair, her vibrant complexion, the very features that had defined her. And in those first months, she felt as if she had lost herself completely. Who was she if not the beautiful one? What value could she possibly have? But as the universe continued this test, something remarkable began to happen. As her external identity dissolved, something deeper emerged. She discovered a self beneath the self, a presence that beauty had neither created nor could illness destroy. She found, in losing her identity, her actual self. This is the profound paradox at the heart of the first challenge. In dissolving who you think you are, you discover who you truly are. Are you prepared for this examination? How tightly do you cling to your social roles? What would remain if your professional status, your relational identities, your physical appearance, your very name were all stripped away? Who are you beneath the temporary costumes of personhood? The second challenge is the challenge of control. You see, once the universe begins to dissolve your artificial sense of self, it then targets your illusion of control. These challenges are sequential and build upon each other in the cosmic curriculum. We in the Western world have developed an extraordinary obsession with control. We attempt to control our environments, our bodies, our emotions, other people, and even the future itself. We create 5-year plans and retirement accounts. We manipulate our appearances and monitor our health metrics. We strategize and organize and systematize, believing that through enough careful planning, we can bend reality to our will. The universe finds this adorable, and then it sends a test. Consider the river flowing down the mountain. When it encounters a boulder, does it stop flowing and complain about the unfairness of the obstacle? Does it create elaborate strategies to remove the boulder? No. The water simply flows around, finding the path of least resistance. This is not weakness. This is profound intelligence. Our attempts to rigidly control life are as absurd as trying to control the weather by shouting at the sky. We make our elaborate plans, and the universe smiles, knowing that a single unexpected event can dissolve them all. We grip the steering wheel of life with white knuckles, not realizing that the vehicle is driving itself. What if I told you that true power comes not through imposing your will upon reality, but through aligning yourself with the currents already moving through it? What if control is actually an illusion that keeps you struggling against the natural flow of existence? Here is the paradox at the heart of this challenge. The tighter you grip, the less you actually hold. The more desperately you try to control outcomes, the more they elude you. But when you learn to surrender, to release the illusion of control, you discover a different kind of power. Not power over life, but power with it. You become like the river, flowing naturally around obstacles rather than exhausting yourself trying to remove them. The universe tests your attachment to control by sending the uncontrollable into your life. How do you respond? Do you resist more fiercely, or do you learn the art of wise surrender? The third challenge is the challenge of suffering. Now we move into deeper territory. Now the universe begins to test not just your concepts and your strategies, but your relationship with pain itself. Suffering comes to every human life. No wealth can prevent it. No wisdom can entirely avoid it. No spiritual practice can permanently transcend it. It arrives in countless forms: physical pain, emotional devastation, loss, betrayal, failure, illness, and ultimately, death, the universal experience. Most of us relate to suffering as a mistake, an injustice, something that should not be happening. We treat pain as an enemy to be eliminated, rather than a teacher to be heard. But what if suffering is not random cruelty, but the most sophisticated teaching method in the cosmic curriculum? Look at the lotus flower. It does not bloom despite the mud. It blooms because of it. The murky depths are not obstacles to its flowering, but the very conditions necessary for its roots to take hold, for its stem to rise, for its petals to open. Without the mud, there is no lotus. Suffering breaks us open. Suffering humbles us. Suffering strips away our pretenses. It is the great revealer, showing us both our hidden weaknesses and our unexpected strengths. Pain transforms us. Pain awakens us. Pain teaches us. Not because suffering itself is good, but because our response to it can be transformative. What if I told you that the universe calibrates your suffering precisely to catalyze your evolution? What if each difficulty is carefully matched to your specific needs for awakening? This does not mean we should seek out pain or glorify it, but it does suggest we might relate to it differently when it inevitably arrives. When suffering comes, most of us ask why. Why is this happening? Why me? Why now? These are the wrong questions. The question is not why, but what. What is this teaching me? What is being revealed? What is being transformed through this difficulty? But here's the thing about these challenges. They're only the beginning. The universe saves its most profound tests for those who have begun to awaken. The fourth challenge is perhaps the most counterintuitive of all. The fourth challenge is the challenge of connection. This is where the universe tests our understanding of relationship in the most paradoxical way imaginable. We humans fear isolation above almost all things. We surround ourselves with noise, with people, with constant stimulation. We check our phones hundreds of times daily, hungry for connection, terrified of being truly alone with ourselves. Yet it is precisely in authentic solitude that we discover our deepest connection to all that is. The universe will inevitably bring periods of isolation into your life. Relationships end. Loved ones depart. Communities dissolve. Or perhaps you find yourself physically surrounded by others yet feeling profoundly separate, unseen, misunderstood. This is not a punishment. This is a laboratory for one of the most sophisticated realizations consciousness can have. Think of the waves on the ocean. Each wave appears separate, distinct, with its own characteristics and trajectory. The wave might believe itself to be an independent entity, defined by its separation from other waves. But this is illusion. The wave is not separate from the ocean. It is not even a thing, but a process. A temporary pattern of movement in the vast, continuous body of water. When the wave realizes its true nature as ocean, does it lose anything? No. It gains everything. Its sense of isolation dissolves not into nothingness, but into infinite connection. What if I told you that your sense of being a separate self is the most sophisticated illusion in the cosmos? What if true connection requires first moving through the laboratory of solitude, where this illusion can be seen clearly and ultimately transcended? I once knew a woman who lost everyone dear to her within a single year. Her husband to divorce, her mother to death, her children to geographical distance, her friends to the busyness of their own lives. She found herself profoundly alone for the first time in her existence. At first, the isolation felt like torture, a cosmic punishment for unknown crimes. She filled her days with noise, with work, with anything to distract from the aching emptiness within and around her. But one day, exhausted by running from solitude, she finally surrendered to it. She allowed herself to feel completely alone, and in that complete aloneness, something remarkable happened. The boundaries of her separate self began to dissolve. Her consciousness expanded beyond the confines of what she had thought was her identity. She discovered herself connected to everything, not in some abstract theoretical way, but as lived experience. The birdsong was not separate from her hearing of it. The breeze was not separate from her feeling of it. Even her thoughts and emotions arose not from a separate self, but from the vast field of consciousness in which all things appear. In absolute solitude, she found absolute connection. This is the paradox at the heart of the fourth challenge. Have you ever allowed yourself to be truly alone, without distraction, without escape, without the constant noise that drowns out deeper awareness? What might you discover if you surrendered to solitude not as punishment, but as pathway? What connections might reveal themselves if you stopped frantically seeking connection in all the places it cannot truly be found? The fifth challenge is the challenge of death. This is the ultimate cosmic examination, the final test that brings all others into sharp focus. We spend our lives pretending death is not real, not imminent, not relevant to our daily concerns. We push it away into hospitals and funeral homes. We speak of it in whispers and euphemisms. We build our lives as if they will continue indefinitely, accumulating possessions, nursing grudges, postponing joy, as if we had all the time in the world. Then the universe brings death close, perhaps through the loss of someone beloved, perhaps through illness or accident that reveals our own mortality, perhaps through the simple recognition, in a quiet moment, that every breath brings us closer to our last. And in that recognition, everything changes. Everything is illuminated with the poignant light of impermanence. What if I told you that death is not a failure of life, but its culmination? What if the recognition of mortality is not meant to fill us with dread, but to awaken us to the extraordinary preciousness of each moment? What if death is not an end, but a transformation as natural and necessary as the butterfly emerging from the cocoon? Look to the stars for wisdom about ending and beginning. The spectacular nebulae that illuminate our night skies are cosmic nurseries, where new stars are born from the remains of stars that have died. Without the death of those stars, without their explosive surrender of what they were, the elements necessary for new life would never have come into being. We are, quite literally, made of stardust. The iron in our blood, the calcium in our bones, the carbon in our cells, all forged in the hearts of stars that lived and died before our sun was born. Death transforms us. Death reveals us. Death completes us. Not as some morbid obsession, but as the ultimate context that gives life its meaning and its urgency. When we live in conscious relationship with death, something extraordinary happens to our priorities. The trivial falls away. The essential comes into focus. We stop postponing life for some imagined future that may never arrive. We discover an authenticity and a presence that was obscured by our pretense of immortality. Have you faced this final examination? Have you allowed yourself to truly feel the reality that your time here is finite and flowing away with each moment? How would you live today if you understood, not intellectually, but viscerally, that it might be your last? Now, as we consider these 5 cosmic tests, identity, control, suffering, connection, and death, we begin to see that they are not separate challenges, but aspects of a single curriculum. Each flows into the next. Each prepares us for what follows. Together, they form a coherent path of awakening that the universe offers to every human life. We resist these challenges because we misunderstand their purpose. We see them as obstacles to happiness, rather than doorways to a deeper, more authentic joy that transcends the temporary states of pleasure and pain. We fight against the very experiences that would liberate us from our illusions. The universe is infinitely patient with our resistance, our confusion, our slow learning. It will present the lessons again and again, perhaps in different forms, but always with the same essential content, until we finally understand. This is not punishment. This is love in its most mature expression. The love that wants our awakening more than our comfort. Now that we've explored these 5 cosmic examinations, let's return to where we began. You see, once you recognize these challenges for what they truly are, now that we've explored these 5 cosmic examinations, let's return to where we began. You see, once you recognize these challenges for what they truly are, everything changes. Not the challenges themselves. They will continue to arrive with the same regularity as the tides. but your relationship to them transforms completely. What once appeared as obstacles become opportunities. What seemed like punishment reveals itself as invitation. We began by considering the possibility that your struggles aren't random misfortunes, but deliberate tests. Now we can understand this truth with greater nuance and depth. The universe isn't testing you to determine your worth. Your worth is inherent, immeasurable, beyond all evaluation. The testing is not about judgment, but about revelation. About bringing into conscious awareness potentials that lie dormant within you until difficulty awakens them. Think about it. Who would you be without the challenges that have shaped you? What wisdom would remain unlearned? What compassion undeveloped? What strength undiscovered if your path had been entirely smooth? The qualities we most admire in ourselves and others are forged in the crucible of difficulty, not despite it. Because of it, I have watched countless lives transformed through the conscious recognition of these 5 challenges. I have seen people move from resistance to acceptance, from acceptance to embrace, and from embrace to gratitude for the very experiences they once cursed. This is not some naive positivity that denies the reality of pain. This is a profound wisdom that transcends our conventional categories of good and bad. Let me tell you about a man whose life embodied this transformation. He had built his identity around physical strength and capability. Then came an accident that paralyzed him from the waist down. The identity challenge struck with full force. Who was he if not the strong, capable one? As he wrestled with this first test, the second arrived. He could not control his circumstances, his body, or the reactions of others to his new condition. The more he struggled against reality, the more he suffered. The third challenge, suffering itself, nearly broke him. The physical pain, the emotional anguish, the spiritual questioning. Why this? Why me? But slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, something began to shift. He stopped fighting reality and started working with it. He allowed his identity to dissolve and reform around different values. He surrendered his illusion of control and discovered a deeper power in alignment with what is. Then came the fourth test, connection. Many of his relationships changed or ended after his accident. He found himself profoundly alone with his new reality. But in that aloneness, he discovered a connection to himself and to life that had been obscured by his former busyness and capability. He realized that true connection had little to do with physical ability and everything to do with presence, authenticity, and openness. Finally, the fifth challenge. His encounter with death had been literal. The doctors had not expected him to survive his injuries. This brush with mortality became his greatest teacher. It stripped away everything trivial, everything inessential. It revealed to him the extraordinary gift of each breath, each moment, each experience, whether pleasurable or painful. Today, he speaks of his accident as the greatest blessing of his life, not because suffering itself is good, but because his response to it revealed dimensions of being that would have remained dormant in easier circumstances. He does not deny the loss or the difficulty. He has simply discovered that gain and loss, ease and difficulty, are not the opposites we imagine them to be. They are complementary aspects of a single process of awakening. You see, how we respond to the universe's tests is ultimately a choice. We can respond unconsciously with resistance and resentment, or consciously with presence and curiosity. The first path prolongs suffering. The second transforms it into wisdom. But how do we recognize these challenges when they arrive? How do we shift from unconscious reaction to conscious response? Let me share what I have observed in those who navigate these tests most skillfully. First, they develop the habit of asking different questions. Not why is this happening to me, but what is this teaching me? Not how can I escape this difficulty, but how can I grow through it? Not who is to blame, but what is being revealed. Second, they learn to distinguish between the situation itself and their interpretation of it. The facts may be unchangeable, but the meaning we assign to those facts is always a choice. The same circumstance that one person experiences as punishment, another recognizes as opportunity. Third, they practice presence with what is, rather than resistance against what is. They develop the capacity to feel fully whatever arises, whether pleasant or painful, without being consumed by it. This is not passive resignation, but active engagement with reality as it actually is, not as they wish it to be. And fourth, they maintain a broader perspective. They see the current challenge not as an isolated event, but as part of a larger pattern of growth and development. They trust the process even when they cannot see the outcome. Think about it. The oak tree doesn't resent the wind that strengthens it. The gold doesn't resist the fire that purifies it. The lotus doesn't curse the mud that nourishes it. There is a profound wisdom in nature that we humans, with all our thinking, often miss. But here's the thing. You already know this wisdom. It lives in your bones, in your cells, in the deepest part of you that has never been separate from the intelligence of the universe itself. Your conscious mind may have forgotten, but your being remembers. And these 5 challenges are designed to awaken that remembrance. I have come to believe that there is only one test, appearing in 5 different guises. The test of whether we will live from our small, separate, fearful self, or from the larger, connected, courageous awareness that is our true nature. Everything else is elaboration on this single theme. What if I told you that you have already passed these tests, in moments when you chose love over fear, presence over escape, growth over comfort? What if I told you that passing them is not about reaching some final state of perfection, but about bringing ever more consciousness to each moment of your journey? You see, once you recognize these challenges for what they truly are, you'll stop fighting them and start flowing with them. You'll see that what appeared to be obstacles were actually doorways. What seemed like punishment was actually invitation. What felt like the universe testing you was actually the universe loving you enough to call forth your deepest potential. And that, you see, is when everything changes.